on terms of American soldiers in prison without right of appeal, I have to say I'm going to have to get back to that. I'm going to need a little bit more specifics on that. But I can tell you that I have served in the Army. I'm the only major candidate for this congressional race who has ever worn the uniform. And I know what it's like to be a grunt on the ground. And I want you to know that if I go become a member of Congress, I understand what it means to deploy a soldier overseas. And I understand what it means to have a loved one or a member of your family put in a combat zone. And I understand fundamentally to my core, we as a nation can never send an American soldier into harm's way, asking him or her to possibly give up their life, if we as a nation are not firmly committed to victory. And if you are not, if our Congress and our nation cannot firmly, clearly, unconditionally commit to victory in a particular conflict, do not ask an American soldier to go into that combat zone and risk their life. Final question, sir.
Pastor Michael, you go. Would you comment, Charles, on your personal position on gay marriage, abortion, and maybe comment on your own personal position?
Sure. Question is my position on a number of social issues, and as well as my personal faith. Let me begin by saying that I am a member of New Hope in I believe a powerful thing of our nation is each individual can make their own decision about their own faith, and I think that is a wonderful thing. For me, it was a path that I chose on my own with my wife. My mother comes from a different religious heritage. She was raised as a Buddhist. I think that's a positive and a good thing for our nation, that we have this variety of faiths in our nation. My position on some of the more controversial issues in front of us, controversial social issues in front of us here. As a general statement, I think Americans should be free to make their own decisions, but I think there are certain things that divide right from wrong. Some of these social issues, like gambling, I do not favor the legalization of gambling here in the state of Hawaii. While I don't question that it might be appropriate for certain communities, I don't think it's appropriate for our community. It is my experience, looking at a lot of the surveys and the studies here, that although gambling can bring in some additional revenues to a particular community, gambling also brings in additional social costs, higher crime, higher divorce rate, higher welfare rates. It only makes sense for a community if the revenues exceed the cost. And the only way you get that is if you do something like Las Vegas, where everything is legal. Anytime you start limiting the amount of gambling here, it doesn't make sense. So that's why I don't support gambling. You had asked me about same-sex marriage. What's my position on same-sex marriage? I do not favor HB 444. To the Hawaii State Legislature, this issue had first come up. And my position is the people of Hawaii have spoken, and they spoke loud and clear, in favor of traditional marriage, and I want to clearly point out, this is a clear division between myself and my colleagues, my two other opponents in this particular race. I'm the only candidate in this race, only major candidate in this race, in opposition to HB 444. Regarding abortion. My position on abortion is that Roe versus Wade is stare decisis. And my election to the United States Congress, if I'm fortunate enough to earn your support, is not going to change that. But the contentious issues in front of Congress are namely whether or not federal funding, whether or not we should use taxpayer money to finance abortions, whether or not we should have parental notification for minors, and whether or not partial birth abortion should be allowed in our nation. I want you to know that wherever you are on the abortion divide, my position is on federal funding. I don't believe the federal taxpayers should subsidize abortion. That's, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, that's not something that I support, and I would not vote in favor of federal funding. That's something I do favor. I'm a father of 3 children, and for me, if the school wants to give my kid a TB test, they need to ask for my consent. Similarly, it makes sense that you should have a parental notification requirement similarly for an abortion for minors. And finally, of course, partial birth abortion is an act that just simply is not medically necessary, should not be allowed in something like this. Sir, I'm going to give you the last question.